Imagine someone looking into your eyes, smiling in a way that calms you, listening to you, holding you, and slowly beginning to use the very things you shared with sincerity as a weapon. Few pains are as subtle and as deep as realizing that your trust has turned into exposed vulnerability in the hands of the person you love. It starts slowly, a sentence that makes you insecure, a calculated silence, a faint sense that something has changed even though you can't explain it. It's like losing the ground beneath you without falling, like living on alert without knowing where the danger comes from. If you're hearing this, you may have carried that feeling for a long time. Maybe you loved someone so deeply that you opened doors that now feel impossible to close. And before we go any further, I have a sincere request. Follow the channel now, not just to support this work, but because here you find reflections that strengthen your emotional clarity, your autonomy, and your ability to see beyond the surface of relationships. If something inside you is searching for answers, this space can truly make a difference. Today, Montaigne will be our guide, a philosopher who believed that wisdom begins when we stop pretending to be strong and start understanding our own fragility. He said that no one is immune to their own mistakes, and maybe that's exactly why we hurt so much when we trust someone. Because when we trust, we disarm ourselves. And once we're disarmed, we become vulnerable to the intentions of the other, whether good or cruel. Before we enter the first theme, here's the second and final request for the first few minutes. If you feel you've lived something similar, follow the channel now. This helps you not miss any content that can transform the way you relate and protect yourself emotionally.
Let's begin with the first theme, the illusion of control. Montaigne said that human beings try to control what they never truly had control over. In relationships, this illusion becomes even stronger. We think that if we are good enough, loving enough, present enough, nothing bad will happen, as if love were a guaranteed contract against pain. But human relationships don't work through guarantees. Someone with bad intentions quickly notices your fear of losing them. They sense your desire to keep the peace, and they use that as a weapon. When someone realizes your insecurity can be manipulated, your trust becomes their main instrument of emotional domination. Montaigne would remind us the greatest illusion is believing we hold what was never ours. The control you believed you had turns into silent submission. Next comes the search for validation, one of the deepest emotional traps. When your self-worth depends on someone else's mood, approval, or affection, you hand over far too much power, and anyone who notices that will use it. A bit of affection lifts you up, a small criticism crushes you, a smile gives you hope, a silence makes you beg. Montaigne said that living for someone else's opinion is dying a little every day. That is exactly what happens when you place your identity in someone else's hands. Validation becomes an invisible leash. You act to please, speak to avoid conflict, shrink yourself so you won't be abandoned. And before you realize it, you no longer know who you are, only who the other person wants you to be. The third point is true detachment. Not this modern, shallow version of pretending not to care, but the philosophical, deep, mature kind of detachment. Montaigne believed that real freedom is born when we accept that everything is impermanent. This doesn't stop you from loving, it stops you from losing yourself. Real detachment says, I choose you, but I don't abandon myself for you. A manipulative person cannot handle someone who isn't afraid of losing them, because someone unafraid of loss does not bend to control, does not fall into guilt, and does not submit to someone else's emotional chaos. Detachment returns the weapon into your hands and takes the power away from the one using your trust against you.
Now we arrive at imperfection and vulnerability. Many people become targets of manipulation because they believe they must be perfect to be loved.
They think they must accept everything, tolerate everything, be patient, gentle, understanding, even when it destroys their dignity. Montaigne said that trying to appear perfect is a form of weakness, and when you try to be perfect, the other person notices your fear of disappointing them. That fear becomes a weapon. But when you accept your vulnerability, it stops being a weakness. It becomes self-awareness, boundary, strength. Someone who knows their own imperfections is not easily manipulated through them. The next point is detachment within relationships, perhaps the most difficult one, because it forces us to confront our deepest fear, the fear of being alone. It's because of this fear that so many people stay in painful relationships. They believe that suffering with someone is better than suffering alone. Montaigne saw solitude as a teacher and said that instead of fearing it, we should listen to it. When you learn to be with yourself, to trust yourself, to be emotionally self-sufficient, manipulation loses its grip. Trust stops being a weapon. It becomes a bridge again. Finally, we reach the theme of surrender and inner freedom. Surrendering is not dissolving. It's not loving to the point of disappearing. Montaigne believed that only those who refuse to trade their inner peace for affection are truly free. Conscious surrender is clear. You love, but you do not erase yourself. You trust, but you do not ignore. You open your heart, but you keep your feet on the ground. This is the kind of surrender that cannot be turned into a weapon because it comes from an internal place that no one has permission to invade. And now we reach the conclusion. If your trust became a weapon in the hands of someone you love, that does not mean you are weak. It means you have a heart capable of giving. And hearts like that suffer, but they also rise again. Montaigne would say that real wisdom begins when we stop blaming ourselves and start understanding ourselves. So listen closely to this. Reclaiming your strength is not abandoning love. It is abandoning illusion. It is not closing your heart. It is learning how to protect it. It is not distrusting everyone. It is trusting yourself first. If this message touched you, follow the channel now. Not for me, but for you. Because you deserve to continue this journey toward inner strength, emotional clarity, and true freedom.